Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
We're joined by Webster Tarpley, who spent several weeks, going back about 4 weeks ago, inside Tripoli under bombardment, and he knows the journalists, Thierry Meyssan and others that are there. Some of them have been actually wounded, and he's been in contact with those folks as much as he can be. But Webster Tarpley, yesterday you said there was reports of counterattacks, and journalists you were talking to said what they saw on the streets was Libyan forces clashing and crushing the rebels, but that there were what appeared to be special forces sniping Western reporters and others. So this looks like a classic special forces op where they're just showing total bedlam within the city, announcing they've taken it as a pretext to recognize it as the government, who then will call in the official flotilla, the landing craft that are waiting offshore with NATO mercenaries.
That's a very plausible scenario, Alex. Let me just point out the shock of the appearance of Saif al-Islam Qaddafi. That means, Saif means shield, so he's the shield of Islam. This is Gaddafi's principal son. He's probably the likely political successor to Gaddafi. You remember that all day yesterday we had been told that first one, then two, then three of Gaddafi's sons had been captured by these Al-Qaeda terrorists, and that already the International Criminal Court with the scoundrel Ocampo were demanding their extradition and all this stuff. This was all complete psychological warfare. So last night, in the middle of the night, at this Rixos Hotel, which is the base of the international press, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi shows up. He says, I was never captured. I'm here. I'm on a tour of our fighting fronts here. We're going to go all around Tripoli. He took some journalists with him. I don't know what the reports are after that. This was an absolute shock. You could tune to Al Jazeera and see these people gasping. They had egg all over their faces. And what it exposes is the big lie. Also what Saif al-Islam Gaddafi said, that this is an information war. This is electronic information warfare. It's InfoWars, as you have known for all these years. It's an information war, and it's done through manipulation. And he said NATO cut off our own Libyan television. They were sending these text messages to people all over Libya saying that Gaddafi was finished and the rebels were now on the march. And then you see what they had. It's basically a rabble, a screening force of terrorists and young dupes, right, young romantics, camp followers who come along with them. They got that into the city through these NATO landing craft, and they've created mayhem. But everything you see from here is a big lie, and people have got to bear this in mind. It's all fake. You don't know what's going on. First they said they had 90% of the city. Now they say they had 80% of the city yesterday, and now they say within 72 hours they'll have the city.
And now they're saying they've taken Gaddafi's compound. Now they're saying that might not be true. And it's confirmed that they've got a whole bunch of different Western and Arab special forces in there just running around trying to kill whoever they can. I mean, this is a serious war crime, Webster.
Yeah, I guess you can call it swarming. I mean, we became familiar with this term swarming thanks to the work of the Albert Einstein Institute there in Boston, right? Swarming adolescents can be used as a tactic, and that's what you're seeing. These are swarming adolescents, except they also have machine guns. Remember, it's impossible for the Gaddafi forces to hold any fixed position because of the NATO bombing. The NATO carpet bombing has been extremely intense. There are these Apache helicopters there shooting up everything. So you don't.
It's a shell game. They've got to continue to move around and then fight the Al-Qaeda Western forces in hit and runs. But, Webster, I'm going to go back to this. They are only days now from, quote, having the official government, Al-Qaeda, call for the larger NATO landing force to come in. And that's when you're going to really see the casualties mount, because there are going to be a lot of citizens with those millions of firearms that are really going to fight when they see an open foreign occupation, and the bloodbath is going to be intense. Do you agree with that analysis?
I think that's a definite danger. We're also told that there's this Potemkin village. There's a fake Libyan town that's been built in Qatar, and they can stage a Hollywood-style massacre in such a place, and then say now it's enough. Gaddafi has gone too far. But I think
well, stay there. Yeah, so stay there.
Actually increasing.
Yeah, babies and incubators coming up. We'll be right back. Okay, Webster, you've got the floor for this short 5-minute segment. What about the issue of the West being fully committed? Obama is announcing that we've had a victory in Libya, even though it's clearly not a victory, either way you slice it, and things are still ongoing. McCain says it's all over, even though it's not. Clearly a giant psyop. And now there's going to be a civil war there. It's going to take massive occupation. As you know, historically, Libya, they do not like being occupied. And so break down where you see this going.
Well, the first thing to say is this is an exercise in mass brainwashing. This is an attempt to brainwash world public opinion on the basis of fake dispatches from the BBC, Al Jazeera, and CNN, and they have essentially manufactured these stories about the three sons of Gaddafi being captured as a means to try to convince the Gaddafi supporters that their world is coming to an end. I mean, if you go back to the Obama campaign, you can find similar war operations that have been done. So the first and most important thing is don't fall into the trap of believing their story. Their story is largely manufactured. They've sent this gang of rabble, these armed terrorists, death squads, into Tripoli. They've supplemented that by landing some of them in from the sea. They're creating mayhem. But this is a kind of, the military term, I guess, is a coup de main. It's a quick action that's designed to stun and shock and to paralyze resistance. But the problem is, if that doesn't work 100% in the first moments, then a counterattack can be organized, and I think that's what we're seeing. For students of the American Civil War, if you remember the Battle of Cedar Creek in October 1864 out here in the Shenandoah Valley, early Confederates were successful with a surprise attack on Sheridan's Union forces, and they drove the Union guys from the field. There was a rout of the Union, except then earliest Confederates were so hungry that they stopped and started to loot the camp, and I think you're seeing that here. These Al-Qaeda characters coming into Tripoli, they say, this is richer than anything we've ever seen. We're going to stop here and loot, and I think that's a sociological thing that's going on. Then, however, Sheridan comes riding back on his horse, and he rallies everybody, and they counterattack. And I think you can compare Saif al-Islam Gaddafi appearing at the Rixos Hotel last night. That's the defiant rallying figure that you need to get your forces going again, and I think that's what you're seeing. That's now about, 10 or 12 hours in the past. Don't expect the Gaddafi forces to hold any fixed positions, because they can't, because of the NATO bombing. I would like to know how many rebels have been killed. I think in the course of the advance on Tripoli, the rebels had very heavy casualties, and they are not, without problems of manpower. So I think that's something you don't hear about. How many rebels have paid with their lives for all of this television stuff? Think about other examples in history of where taking the capital of the supposed enemy turns out not to be what you wanted to do. I guess the most famous, Napoleon was allowed to take Moscow, and then he found that Moscow was a trap. Maybe these terrorists have taken Tripoli to some extent, and now they're finding that what they took was a trap. There's also the whole question of Libya's huge country. It goes, several thousand kilometers south. And this whole province of Fezzan, where the population is largely black, they are not going to accept the yoke of Benghazi and those races.
Well, that's because that particular Arab group literally kills blacks on sight. And so now this is Obama's little gift to Africa, is going to be an attempted black genocide. Webster Griffin Tarpley, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Alex Jones. Stay with us. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day. to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.